Welcome to the 2014-2015 Council Webinar Series brought to you by the College Board. Today's webinar is entitled Early Preparation for the College Application Essay. We will have a large number of participants in the webinar today, so everyone's phone has been muted on entry. We also ask that you leave your phones on mute so your colleagues can hear the presentation clearly. To get your call-in number for the audio line, please use the menu bar above. Go to the drop-down box and select audio. Participants who call in on the landline phones tend to have the best audio experience. We do look forward to answering your questions online, and we'll use the chat feature. This feature is located on the menu bar at the top of your screen. Questions may be submitted at any time during the presentation using the chat feature. However, we will not be taking questions until the end of the webinar presentation. To submit a question, click the icon, the chat icon. Type your question into the chat dialog box, select all panelists from the drop-down, and then click Send or Enter. Now I'd like to introduce our webinar presenters. But before I do that, I'm Jennifer Dunn, the Director at the College Board Membership Mobilization and Engagement Unit, and I'll be your moderator today. I have the honor of introducing our presenters. First, I'd like to introduce Nancy, Advanced Placement Teacher, English teacher at Revere High School in Revere, Massachusetts. We also will have presenting with us Aaron Brown, Associate Director at the Office of Admissions at the University of Southern California. In addition, we'll have Rhody Davis, Director of College Counseling at a private school at Viewpoint School in Calabasas, California. On today's webinar, we first will review the College Board's annual survey that was sent out spring of 2013. This survey surveyed about 1,700 four-year colleges and had them rate 6 factors of what's important or somewhat important on the admission for the college admission process. Then we'll hear from a college admission officer about the purpose and the difference of the different type of college essays. He will also talk about determine what to do and what not to do using real student sample of work. Then you'll get an opportunity to learn and evaluate Viewpoint's high school model for preparing, writing, and sitting students' college essays. Last, you'll hear from the AP teacher, Nancy, and she'll talk about how she developed and applies strategies that support students through the writing process to ensure a well-written and unique college essay. And then you'll have an opportunity to ask questions to our panelists or presenters at the end of the presentation. Now I like to look at the criteria admission officers consider. There is a survey that was done. We do an annual survey at the College Board, and these are results from our spring 2013 annual survey. There was about 1,756 four-year colleges that were actually surveyed. And what these admission officers did, they looked at 6 factors, as you can see here on the screen. They looked at activities, the college interview, the college essay, college recommendations, admission college test scores, and school achievement. And they rated them from very important to important. And as you can see, and this is very relevant to today's webinar, to say where does the college essay fit in as factors of importance in a student application. So as you can see here on the screen where it's 83% school achievement, and those are your courses in which students take, whether it's rigorous coursework, and as you can see that's pretty much one of the highest ratings as they saw as significant on the college application. But also you see that test scores are one of the highest as well. But recommendations at 47%. But today we're going to be talking about the college essay at 46%, which is almost 50% of importance important as admission officers are looking at the college application. And so I think it's really important to see the essay as that one unique indicator of helping students to pull out and tell a story about themselves, to also stand out among the crowd within the college application process. And we're going to get an opportunity to hear from Aaron Brown from the University of Southern California. He's an associate director, and he's going to talk to you first a little bit about the University of Southern California, but he's going to dive in deep of what they actually look for in a college essay. But before we have Aaron present, I'm going to give a little bit about his background, which I think is very interesting because he's an immediate graduate of USC. He joined the Office of Undergraduate Admission after being exposed to the field as an admission intern and deciding that law school was not for him. He worked at USC for 8 years and has spent the last 3 managing the undergraduate application review and scholarship process as well as a new reader trainer. Aaron, could you go ahead? I'm going to pass you the presentation, and you talk about the application essay and the process that you take at University of Southern California. Aaron?
Great. Thank you, Jen. I'm happy to be here today and to speak with you a little bit about the essay from the perspective of a college admission officer. And definitely I'm one of the 46% who was there on that survey who views the essay as at least somewhat important, but usually very important in the admission process. So this slide here shows a little bit about the basic kind of demographic information about the university. In our entering class, we're looking at just over about 3,000 freshmen. It's a diverse group of students. There's not an ethnic majority at USC, and about 23–24% of our incoming students are underrepresented students. And we have about 19,000 undergraduates at USC overall. But I think the biggest thing that I want to point out on this slide here is the reading load per territory manager. The average kind of file reviewer is looking at about 1,500 applications over the course of the cycle, just with the freshman process, with the first year application process. So between the personal statement, the short answer, letters of recommendation, obviously that is a lot of reading. And so to get through them all in a timely manner, we typically spend about an average of 12 to 15 minutes on that first read of each application. And I point this out to show that while we go through a lot of essays and a lot of materials in general in the application, we absolutely do still read the entire personal statement of each and every applicant. And I also want to point out that your students have an opportunity to stand out in this process through their writing. The applicant pool at USC and really at most selective institutions for that matter is a pretty self-selective group. Most of the students could do the work if they were admitted, which is what makes our job very difficult. They have strong quantitative preparation in grades, standardized exam scores. So 52,000 applications as we had this past year for our 3,000 or so seats in the first year class. We absolutely must use the qualitative factors like the essay or the personal statement quite heavily in our process. In looking at the numbers from the kind of fall 2014 class as are listed on the slide, what's not listed there is that we could fill our freshman class nearly 6 times with students who received 6 Bs or fewer in their entire time in high school. We could fill it 5 times over with students whose test scores are in the 96th percentile nationwide or scoring about a 2100 on the SAT in all 3 sections. So obviously then academics alone are not enough. We have too many applications from academically qualified students, and so generally as selectivity increases, so too must the emphasis on qualitative factors. And they honestly can be equally as important as the quantitative academic factors. So the essay, really, or personal statement, then, is an opportunity to, as a student, to introduce yourself. Share things that we won't learn elsewhere in the application. What have you done? What do you want to do? Who are you? What's important to you? Please note that we absolutely understand that these are big questions. Many high schoolers haven't answered these questions before, and we understand, of course, that that's a hard task for anyone, let alone a 17 or 18-year-old in high school. But this is also not to say that your students need to resort to gimmicks or to tricks to stand out in this process. I've read fantastic essays about the seemingly most mundane of subjects, and some really poor essays that rhymed or were given to us in the form of poetry. It is absolutely possible to be memorable for the wrong reasons. Also, and very importantly, outside of the content of the essay and what we learn about the student, honestly, of equal importance, a personal statement is also an opportunity to gauge the student's writing ability. We care about things like spelling, and grammar, and usage. Honestly, you would not believe the number of essays I read every year in which the student doesn't capitalize I throughout the entirety of the essay. Apparently, students are texting us their essays. But we absolutely need to understand a student's readiness to be successful in a college classroom. And writing is a huge part of that. So again, the content is important, but so too is the way in which the student can communicate. As an example, at our institution, as part of our general education curriculum, every student, regardless of major, whether they're engineering, physics, fine arts, art history, or English, is taking 2 writing courses as part of the GE core, in addition to many other general education courses that require significant writing ability. As part of my job, I am responsible for teaching new readers how to read and holding and kind of planning our file review training retreat each year in November prior to reading applications for the whole staff. And every year I invite faculty to come to speak to us as part of this training, as we absolutely understand that we do this work on their behalf. And understanding what it is that faculty see in the classrooms, strengths and weaknesses, what are areas that we should consider as we review applicants, and they consistently rate writing ability as one of the most important factors to them. We have to be certain of that student's ability to effectively communicate at a college level. And in addition to that ability, as it says in the last part of the slide there, did they answer the prompt or the specific question? Did they really follow directions? Following directions is absolutely an important part of the college application process. So this next slide here speaks a bit, or is portions of an applicant's essay from a couple years ago, answering the common application prompt on something that a background or a story that is essential to their identity, and kind of what it is that does. And as you read through these couple of paragraphs here, I want to point out that this is kind of what this example does well, is yes, to provide a story, but also in telling that story, we've learned much more about the student. In this case, their kind of journey of self-acceptance, in a sense, as a nerd, and finding their crowd and their niche and kind of where they fit in high school. So not only is this student able to communicate that effectively, but through this story of kind of learning about books and words as their arsenal and changing to an understanding and a kind of a more mature perspective on what they can do in high school, we've learned about the student more so than just simply telling us a story. I also, of course, want to mention that short answers absolutely matter as part of this process. Those are often, of course, found on the writing supplement or member profile questions for schools that are on the Common Application. Oftentimes, they are school-specific. Again, with 52,000 applications, we're very interested in learning about a student's fit with and understanding of our university. A short answer really allows us to begin to ascertain that student's interest in USC and provides another mechanism to understand their writing ability. And oftentimes it can come across as a way that's much more authentic, in the sense that, as we're going to talk about as the next couple parts of this, this panel, you'll hear about working very closely on the main personal statement and the main college essay, but oftentimes we see a piece that is fantastic and polished and wonderful, and the short answers are dashed off 5 minutes before the deadline. So we're looking closely, again, as we are in the personal statement, not just about the content, but also in how effectively that student can communicate as well. And this last piece here is an example of one of our short answers that asks about a student, or tells the student to elaborate on an activity that's very important to them that they've done outside of the classroom. And so we have 2 questions on our writing supplement. This is one. The other is that kind of why USC piece. What are your academic interests, and how do you plan to pursue those here? So with this one, we've chosen to share this because it's the student talking about their short shorts that they use to jog, and kind of done in a way that really expands on their love of running, their passion for running, more so than any one line or two we could possibly get in the activity summary or the resume section of the Common Application, and gives us, again, a little bit more insight about why they run, what's important to them, and kind of done a bit tongue-in-cheek, in a sense, through their short shorts, and what it is that we're learning about the student and their extracurricular activities there. All right, so at this point, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Rhody, who will speak about her experience at Viewpoint.
Thanks, Aaron. That was really, really important, especially the information I thought about texting. I know when when I was a school counselor in a school, I just remember that sometimes the students forgot the difference between writing in a text and writing a formal essay and information for a college essay. So I think that's really important, and that you actually get lots and lots of essays with a lowercase I. That's, it's kind of funny in ways, but it's also, we have to be careful about, the writing process. And I think that the next couple of presenters on the panel today, they're going to actually go through, they're in high schools that they are actually helping students through this writing process. And we thought it was really important for this next presenter, Rhody Davis, to talk about her high school model and actually getting all of her students to write unique, good college application essays. So she's going to talk about the model that she uses at her school. I just really want to talk about Rhody's experience as well. Rhody is, she has in her 24th year in college counseling and college admissions. She currently is in her 7th year as the Director of College Counseling at Viewpoint School in California. Ms. Davis also, with a previous position, included Director of International Admissions at the University of Chicago, Director of College Counseling at the Latin School in Chicago as well, and also Associate Director of College Counseling and an English teacher at the Kincaid School in Houston. She also held national positions in profession that included the chair of the Association of College Counselors in Independent Schools. I'd like to introduce Rhody and have her talk about her, her school model. Rhody?
Thanks very much, Jennifer. I'm happy to be here today and share some thoughts about the college essay with my colleagues across the country. First of all, let me tell you a little bit about Viewpoint School. We were founded a little over 50 years ago in 1961 as an independent, nonprofit, co-ed college preparatory day school. And we're located in a suburb of Los Angeles, a city called Calabasas. We're on 40 acres in the Santa Monica Mountains. So it's a really nice setting. We have trees everywhere, and we have a creek that runs through our campus, and it's a very inspiring learning environment for our students. Students travel to Viewpoint from throughout Los Angeles. They come from many different communities all over the city. We have a variety of students from all kinds of backgrounds, racial, religious, socioeconomic backgrounds, and a number of our students are on financial aid. So we're a kindergarten through 12th grade school, and the total enrollment of our school is about 1,200 students. We have 510 in the upper school right now and about 111 students in the senior class. So it's not too tiny, but it's not a huge school. We offer 28 AP courses and 18 honors courses. It's a very rigorous curriculum, and we have many opportunities in the arts, performing and visual arts, as well as things like computer science. We also have lots of athletic teams and clubs and organizations. So it's a very comprehensive, robust program that we offer our students. Next slide, please. So we come at college counseling very much from a counseling perspective, and we share with our students and parents our philosophy about college counseling, because we think it's really important to have an approach, have some ideas about the approach that we take to working with students as we work with them as they apply to college. So we don't look at it necessarily as just filling out forms and meeting deadlines, although that's important, but we seek to help them learn life skills that will help them in college and beyond. So guiding us as we work with students is our philosophy, which basically states that as students engage in self-reflection, maintain realistic expectations, build productive relationships, conduct sound research, and meet all deadlines, they become empowered to take responsibility for their own college admission process and maximize their success. So every aspect of our college counseling program is designed to help students meet these goals. And so in particular, when we're looking at the college essay, we also look at it and position it as an opportunity for students to engage in self-reflection, to really think about who they are and how that can be applied to the schools that they are interested in and how they can include that information in their applications. And really that the essay is a great vehicle for that. Next slide, please. So as we approach working with students on the college essay, we sort of have I broke this down into 9 general points about how we work with students on writing the college essay. First of all, we schedule specific time to work on the essay. In fact, we get started with the seniors in what we call our College Counseling Summer Institute, which occurs 2 weeks before school begins. And it's a 3-day sort of boot camp of sorts where the seniors come to campus for about 4 hours in the morning. It's in the middle of August, so we don't want to completely end summer at that point, so we don't go overboard, but we have them come from about 9 to 1, and they have application workshops. We have some guest speakers come and talk about from colleges and talk about the application. We have and we also have English teachers help us with essay writing workshops through this boot camp. So we have dedicated time in the summer right before school starts to work on the college essay. And then throughout the fall, we also have afternoon workshops and lunchtime workshops to help students work on the college essay, because as we know, as counselors, not everyone is ready to start working on those essays and their applications in August. So we hold these workshops throughout the fall. And we also involve faculty. Many of our students have close relationships with their teachers here at Viewpoint, and so we capitalize on that by having our English teachers, who are obvious choices to work on the college essay. We partner with them, and they help us help the students work on the essays. And we find that students, even after the formal workshops are over, are continuing to work with faculty on their essays. So it's a nice way for students to tap into additional resources outside of our college counseling office to get the help they need. We also prepare a packet of information for the students about the college application process in general, but we have a lot of great information about the essay. We provide information on why the essay is important, sort of some of the things that Erin was saying about the application about the essay in the application process, and we give some tips, some do's and don'ts about the essay. We also provide some sample essays that have been successful, essays written by our previous graduates. So it's kind of fun. They have a chance to read essays that were written by often students that they knew. So that really helps to personalize it, and also says, well, wow, if that student can write a great essay like this, so can I. So we show them good examples of student essays. Then we talk about why the essay is important, how it works in the college counseling, in the college application process, how it can help them with the self-reflection that they need to do in order to write good applications and in order to make the right fit for colleges that they want to apply to and eventually attend. So we help position the essay within that context. We also talk about with them how, by understanding how to write that why am I interested in college X essay, how that will help them understand why a college is a good fit for them or why they're applying to that school. So we really try to help them understand that the essay is more than just a simple writing assignment, that it can really help them think about important ideas that are related to who they are as people and how they can approach the college application process. So we talk about how it's used in admission. We talk about the different types of essays that they'll encounter, the Common App essay prompts, the 5 prompts that they'll be able to choose which one to write on. We also have many, many students apply to the University of California, which offers 2 very specific essay prompts. So we talk about those prompts and how to write those essays. The short answers, the personal statements that they might encounter on state school applications, which tend to be less stylized and more kind of straightforward information about their interests and goals. And then, again, that really important why college X essay. So we also provide brainstorming ideas for them to help generate essay topics. So many students will have to write more than one essay for the variety of colleges that they're applying to, and so we want to help them early on gather ideas for different topics on which to write. So we have some brainstorming activities that we will work with them, that we will run with them to help generate topics. And then in our workshops, we provide opportunities for feedback, peer editing, feedback from teachers, feedback from college counselors on how their essays are coming together. And then we also, we want to encourage them to keep persisting. Sometimes students just, they whip out the essay and then they're ready to move on, and they don't really want to kind of give it the attention and the work that it takes to write a good essay. So we challenge them to keep going if we feel it's not their best work. And I think that's a great life skill that we can help teach through teaching them through helping them write the college essay. And then we just have tips about the writing, awareness of audience. We talk about who's going to be reading this application essay. We talk a little bit about admission committees and, who we try to help personalize who works at colleges. It's not just a big robot or computer that's going to be making decisions. It's people like Erin on the other side of the essay who are going to be evaluating it. We talk about the need for engaging the reader, use of language, use of proper grammar, the structure, and how, you know, you don't have to write on you know, the most mind-blowing topic. You can write a great essay on a very prosaic topic. So that's sort of the overview of how we approach the college essay with kids. So one of our English teachers, Ms. Stephanie Vermachuk, I'm going to give her a shout out right now. She has put together a really great 3-day workshop that she uses with our students through the College Counseling Summer Institute that I was talking about. And Stephanie has agreed to let me share this with everyone on this webinar. And I think it can be really helpful to you as you think about maybe running your own workshop with students, or you can even, if you don't have time to do that, you can even distribute this information to maybe to your students and they can do it themselves. But what I'd like to do now is provide an approach for workshopping with students on how to write the college essay. So first of all, the goals of this exercise are that students will gain an understanding of the writing task. We talk about, you know, the specifics of how a college essay is used, you know, that it's a formal writing assignment, that there are rules to it. You know, with the Common App, there's 650-word limit. There are 5 topics, so that they have to, it's not just a free writing, creative writing assignment that some students wanted, that approach some students want to take with this college application essay, and it really, there are some rules that they have to follow. We also, through this exercise, hope that they will understand the qualities that a good essay possesses, you know, honesty, depth, sensitivity, liveliness, voice, you know, narrative, and then a movement from narrative to analysis. The goal of this essay of this exercise is to help students generate a lot of possible topics and approaches. We want to encourage them to maybe explore some of those non-obvious, non-cliched topics, and we do that through our brainstorming exercises that are included in this exercise. And then the other thing that we, a goal of this exercise is to help students just kind of get the material down, write fast, sloppy drafts so that they can get the information out and get some great material down that they can come back and massage and revise and use as the building blocks for a great college essay. So those are the goals of the exercise. So the way it's laid out here is in 3-day increments of 2 hours, so 2 hours a day. So basically on day 1, we give with the students, we break them into groups and we give an overview of what the workshop goals are, you know, an outline of it. 3 2-hour sessions. Each night there's going to be a little bit of homework. We want them to stockpile some topics from the brainstorming exercises that they can call upon later in the application process. And we are going to provide them an opportunity to have 3 working essay drafts and 1 solid draft by the end of the exercise, by the end of the 3 days. So we also discuss the goals and topics of the Common App essay. So we go through, you know, why the essay is important, and we talk about the Common App essay. Then we go through some brainstorming exercises, and there are a couple of slides later on in this presentation which give an example of what some of our brainstorming exercises are, questions that we ask students to get the creative juices flowing. Then we, again, review the Common App essay prompts. And then we have students choose one of the prompts, and working with some of the brainstorming topics that they've generated, we do an exercise where we time them for 20 to 25 minutes, and we get them to draft a quick and messy response. Write for 25 minutes, aim for 500 words. Don't focus on necessarily on providing your best work ever. The goal is to just get ideas down, but have it in a form that one of your peers can read. So, have a beginning, a middle, and an end. So, because then we're going to turn to a peer editing portion of this 2-hour time frame. So we'll have the students partner up, and they'll read each other's work. They'll talk about it, what worked, what didn't work, what do you like, what did you not understand, what would you like to know more about, is the topic effective? So we encourage the students to engage in some great discussion about each of their essays, and then we want them to, at the end of that, self-reflect, make some notes about how to approach the next draft, focusing on their own engagement with the piece and the voice that they see emerging from the piece, and asking themselves, like, what's memorable about this? What advice did I get from my friend that can be really useful? And encouraging them not to judge too much. This is good, this is bad. Stay away from that kind of judgment terminology as they look at their work. And then we finish up with homework. So we'll ask them to read some of the sample essays that were in the packet that we distributed. So on day 2, again, it's a 2-hour time frame. We start by reviewing and discussing some of the sample essays that they read in the packet. What did they remember about the essays that they read? What did they think worked? What did they think didn't work? What were some of the qualities about these essays that made them effective? And then we will turn to the brainstorming topics that the students generated and have them look through those topics again and have them choose another Common App essay prompt and do that 20 to 25-minute writing exercise, aiming for 500 words, coming up with a kind of a quick and sloppy draft that has a beginning, a middle, and an end so that they have another draft to work from. And then we will have them do it again with a third draft. Or they can either work on a brand new draft or go back to the first essay or the second essay and work on that. We want to give them the freedom to work on whatever writing that they want to work on at that point. And then we will do some more peer editing, sharing their essays with one another, giving positive feedback, hearing positive feedback, trying to get a sense of how their peers are feeling about their writing, and trying to get some really constructive criticism that they can use as they approach the revision process. And then at this point, we will have them self-reflect on their own process, choosing one topic from the 3 drafts that they've worked on to develop into a full essay on the next day. So the homework for that night is we ask them to share some of their thoughts in an email or in a note that they write to the teacher. So what are some of the things that you've learned after this 4 hours in this workshop about your writing, about your approach to the essay, about your next steps? So again, we want to promote self-reflection. We want to promote kind of communication and collaborative teamwork with not only their peers, but with the teacher. So the homework for that night is to think about which essay they want to work on for the next day and to really continue to self-reflect about what they're learning, what they're getting out of it. So on day 3, the goal is to have them come in and write a draft that is going to be ready for some really supportive and focused feedback. And not to have them worry about it being too long. I think if you've worked with students in their college essays, as I know many on this webinar have, students tend to write these long, lengthy treatises as their first draft. So we tell the students not to worry too much about having them be so long, because we will work with them to cut it through the process. So we have them really focus on the introduction, tighten up that beginning. Sometimes it takes too long for students to get to the meat of their essay. So we really encourage them to be ruthless with the introduction. And also we start drawing their attention to, are they focusing their essay around a single idea? Is there a thesis type statement that they can identify for their essay? Or in other words, what is that one sentence answer to the Common App prompt that they're trying to respond to? So again, trying to focus their thinking, focus their writing around a single idea. We talk about the show, don't tell. Are they over narrating? Can they dramatize more effectively? Is there a focus on action as well as analysis? And are those two concepts working well together? Providing some narrative, providing some analysis. And then we go to more peer feedback, sharing their work with others, providing their feedback to others' work, and then we encourage them to continue to develop and revise after the feedback sessions, and then to get their feedback from their teachers and their college counselor. So in the end, at the end of 3 sessions, 6 hours, they'll have 3 drafts and 1 solid draft of the Common App essay. So if students are really industrious, they can get a huge piece of their Common Application work done. So next slide, please. So this is just an example of some of the questions that we ask students to answer to get their creative juices flowing. They're not that amazing. What do you want to study in college? How would others describe your role in the school or home community? Just things like that to help them start brainstorming about different topics they can write on. Next slide, please. Here's some more. You'll have a chance to review this in your on your own time when you can access the PowerPoint later. And then that's it. Thank you so much for your attention and time.
Thank you, Rhody. I think also when we send out the follow-up thank you, we are going to send additional tools and resources from that 6-hour, 3-session approach writing Common Application essay that that the English teacher developed and that Rhody developed for her counseling program. Now I'd like to introduce to you Nancy, who's advanced placement teacher, English teacher at Revere High School in Revere, Massachusetts. And I'm going to read just briefly about Nancy's bio. She's taught English language arts at Revere High School for 20 years. She advises Cultural Club and Future Teachers Club, and is an adjunct professor at Emmanuel College. She's a blogger for the Center for Teaching Quality. Nancy also has won several awards and has been the top 50 finalist for the Verkey Global Teacher Prize. I'd like to introduce Nancy. She's going to talk about her school briefly and then really get into depth of how she helps students through the writing process for the essay. Nancy?
Thank you. Yes, so Revere High School is a low-income urban school where close to 80% of our students receive free or reduced lunch, meaning that they live at or below the poverty level. We're a very multicultural school with students from all over the world, and over 46 languages are spoken. You can see a little bit more about our enrollment here. We do have 18 AP courses, over 30 clubs, over 30 varsity sports. And again, very multicultural school. Next slide, please. So the problem that we find is for students when writing college essays is that for many students, they're used to only writing one way, the way in which they're tested on the state test and the AP test. And in today's public high school, that's analyzing, synthesizing, evaluating, arguing. And so students aren't really used to writing in their own voice. And for many, it's extremely difficult. Next slide. So the first thing we do is we just grab a pen and a piece of paper or our iPads, and we begin generating ideas. There's no judgment, no evaluation, just pure listing. Next slide. So next we go through the essays, and then I ask the students, hey, you know, what's unique, what's interesting, what's different? Maybe that might be what you want to focus on in your essay. One of the best essays that I ever read, for example, was from a student who wrote about when she challenged the norm at her Catholic school by starting a gay-straight alliance. Another wrote about how excited she and her parents were when they found out that she was selected to go to a teen leadership conference in Washington, D.C., and she later learned that she'd have to pay $3,500 to attend. But it was her analysis and reflection of that disappointing experience that ended up being an excellent college essay. Next slide. And then we look at those Common Apt prompts. I ask students to try to answer each one and to see what your college is looking for. Does something from your list fit? Does it trigger a new idea? Next slide. Okay, so then once we begin writing, these are the three most important things. Number one, you have to tell the story. Number two, then analyze it. And number three, reflect on it and what the experience meant to you. So let me give you an example. A student in my class who was a Bosnian Muslim once wrote an essay about her elementary school teacher asking all the Muslims in the classroom to stand up. When Lila stood up, the teacher told her to sit down because she didn't believe Lila was a Muslim because of her light skin. So Lila sat down. The story was interesting, but it was her analysis and her reflection on the incident in her college essay that resulted in one of the most powerful college essays I've ever read. Next slide. Here's another example based on the Common Apt question. Reflect on a time when you challenged a belief or an idea. What prompted you to act? Would you make the same decision again? So my student Jose wrote about his educational experience as a young man of color. And he wrote, sometimes it's hard being a teenager of color in school. I've been in many difficult situations. For example, in 6th grade on the way to lunch, a student popped a cap gun. When the dean turned around, he looked at me and said, you, come here. He brought me into an empty room where I was searched for the caps. I was sobbing because I was in trouble for something I didn't do. Once they didn't find anything on me, they let me go to lunch, but I was still crying. I had been the only brown-skinned boy in line, and I felt I had been unfairly targeted. Again, it was Jose's analysis and reflection that made such a strong essay. He reflected on how that incident helped him to learn to speak out and to work towards change. And then he wrote, I never dreamed I could speak up. I wasn't in honors classes. I struggled in school. I was frequently in trouble. But I didn't remain silent, and I made a difference. I talked about my experiences as a young man of color in a national webinar for over 400 educators in which I shared my story, my challenges, and my hopes for the future. And I explained how education can help young men of color. Speaking up was terrifying for me, but I knew I had to do it. Now I have hope for the future, and I truly believe that by speaking up, I can change the world. So once again, you can see it was the analysis and reflection that really, really made a strong essay. Next slide. The next thing I tell students to do is to edit for style. And again, here's where I continually tell the students, you know, the show, don't tell. If you're discussing the place where you feel most content, as one of the common applications essays require, be sure to provide sensory detail so your reader can experience that place too. Don't fake it or take on that, you know, one of the world's biggest problems. An admissions counselor once told me that the college essay is like having a cup of coffee with the student. So make sure your essay does just that, and don't try to be too academic or overuse the thesaurus. Low-income urban school students are sometimes afraid to write essays in which they feel that the essays don't portray them in a positive or collegiate light. Sammy was a student in my college prep class, and although he was extremely bright and had a great deal of ability, his grades didn't really reflect his potential. Sammy wrote his essay about all the thoughts that were going through his head the night that there was a gang fight at a party he attended, and he hid in a bush for 8 hours until daylight. His reflection on his life, his dreams, his goals was so powerful it brought me to tears. And he was accepted to a great state school where he went on to do big things. Next slide. Editing for word count is one of the most difficult things for students to do, and I encourage students to read the essay aloud. And then I also tell them to let the essay rest a little bit, put it down, walk away from it for a day or two, and then come back and read it with fresh eyes. This will help both with editing for word count and then finding the grammar, punctuation, and spelling errors. And again, as Rhody said, peer editing can be a real help for this. Next slide. So the points that I highlight with students are to tell your unique story. As I stated, I work in a low-income urban school district where close to 80% of the students receive free or reduced lunch. And many of my students are immigrants, and they've overcome enormous obstacles to be where they are today. I encourage them to focus on those distinctive aspects of their story that sets them apart from other students. My student Kais struggled academically, but his story of escaping the Taliban, fleeing to Pakistan, and then fighting off the neo-Nazis in Russia earned him a full scholarship to a prestigious prep school. Number 2 is don't be too boring or generic. I had a lovely AP Literature and Comp student one year who had worked her entire academic career taking 7 AP classes, participating in 3 sports. She was president of 2 clubs, did all this community service, and her college essay was just crammed with this information. It was more like a resume narrative than a look at who the student really was. So I encouraged her to focus on some event, good or bad, that shaped her and made her the person she is today. And she wrote about attending a summer soccer camp at a Tony private school and how the girls made jokes about our city and about her ethnic background. Her story about dealing with and then overcoming that situation was much more compelling and authentic than her first essay. Number 3 is don't try too hard. I had another AP student who wrote her college essay about a spiraling leaf that fell at her feet on a walk home from school. And her essay was filled with flowy language and sensory detail. But again, it did little to tell who she truly was. The student was attempting to use metaphor and imagery to impress the college admissions person, but instead the essay was kind of boring and trite. So I encouraged her to dig deeper, and the resulting essay about her struggles buying plus-size clothing in today's shopping mall was smart and funny, and it revealed a great deal about her enthusiasm for life and her entrepreneurial spirit. Well, actually, it should be number 4. I see my numbers are a little screwed up there. Show your resilience. When the New York Post wrongly identified one of my students as a suspect in the Marathon bombing, plastering his face on the front page of the newspaper, his life changed drastically, and the effects were devastating. Writing about that experience and how he worked to overcome it, again, created an extremely powerful essay. Number 4 is, you know what, something exciting and interesting did happen to you, because lots of times kids will say to me, especially my higher level students, they feel like they've done everything right and they've led sheltered lives that aren't interesting or appealing. But everyone has a story. One of the best essays I read was from an AP student who wrote about the first time our school's 10-member marching band showed up at a football game in their new marching regalia, complete with multi-buttoned jackets and crisp slacks and tall feathered hats, and definitely not something that was expected at our urban school. Her essay captured her strong writing ability and her style and her effervescent sense of humor. Number 5 is work for readability. It's not a 5-paragraph essay. It's not an open response question on a state test. Have a little fun with it. You can use dashes and ellipses. You can even make exclamation points, sparingly. Using shorter and more impactful paragraphs makes your essay easier to read, more authentic. And number 6, make sure you proofread it. I think all of us have said this so many times, at least 10 times. I happen to feel grammar, punctuation, and spelling error in a college essay is fatal. So the easiest way is to proofread is to read it out loud, fix the sentences that sound phony, get rid of passive voice, make sure your commas are in the right place, use consistent verb tense. And that's it for me.
Thank you so much, Nancy. I want to move quickly into our Q&A section of the webinar, and there were some questions that came in about is it ever appropriate to include, and this is maybe for Aaron, is it ever appropriate to include a photo with a personal statement?
I would say that it really would rarely be. Generally, if the photo is needed to tell a story, we would expect that that story would instead be told through the student's writing.
Okay. Also, this is about peer editing. So this could be either for Rhody or you, Nancy. What have you found is beneficial of peer editing? Is it better than a teacher's editing?
I can say that my students, when they peer edit, they will call their friends out for being phony or inauthentic, and I think that's important. Go ahead, Rhody.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I also think because students are so keen on what their peers think and say, and, the peer opinion has such strong impact on students, I think that they can get great feedback from them and they'll listen to it, often when they might not listen to what an adult has to say about it. But I think the phoniness piece is a really good one.
So this is another question. Is it ever appropriate for applicants to use the same essay for every application?
Well, I think you got to be careful of the one-size-fits-all approach to writing a college application essay. I mean, I think a student with some good foundational essays, you can kind of tweak them to answer the question effectively. But I think if you just slap an essay onto, for each question, and it doesn't really answer the question, that can be deadly.
I think to follow up, absolutely. It's pretty easy for us to tell when an essay has been shoehorned into a specific topic, and especially was written for something else. So I think that absolutely there's kind of a foundation that a student can use, or again, that story that they want to tell. But especially with the short answers, it's important to, as much as possible, try to have a unique bit of writing for each answer.
Now, this question is an interesting question. It's about, I have heard that students who have struggled with mental illness should not write about this in a topic for a college essay because of this, their stigma, the fear of liability if a student hurts themselves or others at the school. What are just, your opinions about that at all? Aaron, could you answer that at all? I mean, have you guys seen
Sure.
that?
I mean, obviously we can't, of course, discriminate against the student based on anything that they're talking about in their essay. And so I would encourage students to be as frank and as forthright as they're comfortable being. And we be sure that we talk with all of our readers about what's appropriate to consider. At the same time, though, if they do have concerns, we expect that they bring those concerns forward, and we absolutely have conversations across campus if necessary, but that in and of itself should not dissuade a student from writing about a topic that is central to their experience in high school and who they are.
I have something to share on that question. A couple years ago, I had a student who had suffered from depression, took a leave from school, and came back, and she was much better. And she, against my advice, wanted to write about this in her college essay. She felt like this is a story that's so critical to understand the person I am and what I've been through. And I was like, okay. Her parents and I were very nervous about it. And she had tremendous results and reaction to this essay. Colleges felt really like she was being really honest about it. And she was also, I think it's critical if a student writes about this that they are able to honestly articulate that they've recovered, that they are improving in the steps that they've taken to for their recovery. I think that's a critical piece of it. But I've seen students write about disabilities, write about mental illness really effectively, and it's been fine in the college process. And in fact, they had a lot of respect for it from admission people.
Thank you. There's two questions. I know that we're running out of time. We have about a minute left, so if you need to, leave the presentation, that's fine. But there's two questions I think are really important. First, someone asked about the data in the very beginning about the College Board Spring 2013 annual survey. We sent out an annual survey to colleges. There were about 1,700 colleges that actually were surveyed, and they put as indicators of what they felt, the admission officers, of what they felt were key indicators for the college application essay. So that was just the data at the very beginning. It's also, if you have the counselor source book, it is also in the college application section or chapter of the College Board counseling source book. The next question I have is, does a great essay make a difference in a borderline application? Does a poor essay make a difference for the top 5 or 10% of the applicants? And maybe, Aaron, you could answer that.
Sure. I would say yes, absolutely, to both parts of that question. If you have a student who really writes a strong personal statement and is able to communicate quite effectively who they are, that can absolutely be one of the reasons why we may advocate for a student. And similarly, if there's a student who academically everything is there, they're very, very strong, but writes a poor essay, whether it's in terms of the content is not there or the ability isn't there, absolutely that can play a role in the decision-making process.
I would like to thank our panelists for taking the time out, and also the webinar attendees for taking out the time to actually attend the webinar and also develop this webinar. We value your feedback as well. I just want to make a couple announcements for many of you who are still on the line. We still have some additional webinars, upcoming webinars. One is on our counselors and the redesign assessments, but talking about the Khan Academy, the partnership that the College Board has with Khan Academy in providing customized practice for students. You'll actually get a live webinar talking to, showing you the platform of the new Khan Academy practice tool. Also, avoiding summer melts and early awareness for middle school student, and then we'll end up with another counselor and the redesign assessments, but talking about understanding the scores, the reporting, and the student opportunity. Will be our last webinar for this year on June 9th. So please register to attend on collegeboard/CW. Also, if you have not joined our online community, take the time out to join so you can network with counselors across the country. If you also have not pledged for our 4 or More campaign, saying that you were committed to helping students through the application process and apply to at least 4 colleges. And I think this webinar is really important because it's applying to more colleges, but making sure that it's not about the quantity of college applications, it's about the quality of college applications. So that essay should be something that is showing interest for a school, that is really highlighting the unique qualities of a student. So if you have not pledged, you can go to counselorworkshop.collegeboard.org to pledge. Also, if you have not or you want to hear our presentations, we are uploading them onto our website, onto our K-12 professional site, website, so you can look at our archived webinars as well. In addition, with the counselor's redesign, we have a counselor resource guide to the redesign that is has been mailed out to about 85,000 counselors, but if you have not received one, you can actually join our community and also go on the College Board/CW website and get the guide to talk about all about the redesign assessments, timelines, scoring report, and frequently asked questions, and also tools and resources for teachers and your parents as well as students, where you can photocopy, hand out, have classroom sessions or evening sessions with your parents. I really would like to, again, thank our presenters for taking out the time to help with the webinar today. Also, there will be a short evaluation sent out to you at the end of the webinar. Please fill that out because we really want to make sure that our professional development webinars are improving and that we're providing excellent PD for you. In addition to that, we'll send out a follow-up thank you that will have the recording to attendees, that will have the recording of this presentation, as well as the tools and resources, especially about the viewpoint model that Rhody talked about in addition to that. I really appreciate and thank everybody for attending.